You know, sometimes you read a book and you just say, that's it. That is it. It just put words on concepts that you can put words on, and that really describes who you are and basically how you're made. And so this month, I wanted to share with you a book that I recently read and that I will be definitely reading and rereading again. And it's the book called Deep Work by Carl Newport. And it's really funny because now there's really a trend on, the 15-minute book summary, and you can have an executive summary of the book, and like everything is so condensed in terms of time to just gather more and more information. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not at ease with that concept. It really doesn't resonate with me. And probably that is why that book touched me so much, because that is how I am. I am a deep worker. I love going deep, really deep in the rabbit hole on topics that really, really resonates with me. So let it be marketing, productivity, mindset, human behavior, patterns, obviously psycholinguistics. And I really like having deep and getting that headspace and time space to go into the deep work. So in a time where we're really in an era where everyone's being super busy, everyone's just kind of skimming at the surface, this book really comes at the other end of the spectrum and says, you know what? Joy and happiness is not when we're at the surface. Joy and happiness is when we go in deep. When we actually have and take the time to go deep into topics that interest us. That is really where we find the most meaning, where we find the most joy and meaning. So in the book, they bring a lot of studies. And one of the studies that they did is what are people doing all the time, And what they've noticed is that we are always fighting against desires. Because fundamentally, the brain is really a lazy organ, okay? Because it's keeping its energy to keep us alive. So this fighting with desires all the time is, fighting without this desire of eating, of sleeping, of doing shallow work. So what's shallow work? In the book, they say shallow work is checking your emails, going on social media. That is doing shallow work. So what we want is we actually want to have clear our schedule, put less things in our schedule to be able to dive deep. Because when our schedule is jam-packed, where we're always being busy, like checking emails, going on social media, doing this and doing that, and going into this myth of multitasking, which now we really know does not work. What happens is that there's an attention deficit, the residue that they bring in. So if I'm doing a task and then I'm moving on to another task, well, my brain is still leaving some attention here and bringing that into here. Oh yeah, so I finished my call with Mrs. Smith and I go on to checking my emails, but I'm still thinking about the call in Mrs. Smith. So we accumulate this and we accumulate this during the day. And at the end of the day, no wonder we're burnt. No wonder we're exhausted. No wonder people just want to sit and just watch Netflix for the rest of the evening. It's because they stay at the surface. So now the question becomes, how do I bring in that concept of deep work, of deep focusing? Because I'm sure you've had some times, I know I have, where you're really, really into a project. And that's where, you get more ideas, you get that laser focus. And at the end of the day, you feel like energized because you actually went into that zone, that focus zone that is yours. So how do we get there? Well, in the book, they suggest one of the tactics that they suggest is schedule every minute of your day. If you don't block off what's going into your schedule, Believe me, life will take care of putting stuff in your schedule. And we all know it's going to be shallow work. If we leave space and we're like, oh, well, then from, 10 to 11, I'll do this. And then, we'll see how the rest of the day goes. You end your day and you're like, what did I do the rest of the day? You ended up checking out your email, which is other people's priority. Ended up being on social media, where we can get into social media and come out of it only 3 hours later, wondering what happened. So focus, really decide ahead of time, what are you going to do exactly when? And that's really so if you're listening and you've been following me, it's probably because you are also a deep worker. You like going deep into topics. You like going into and getting insight and really getting focused on topics, on insight, on projects. That's where you thrive the most. And you know what? The world needs that right now. I think we've had enough of superficial, of information. Now what we need is insight, transformation. So if you like being focused, if you like diving deep, definitely check out the book. And it's not just a book that we read, it's a book that we do. So it's really interesting how, Carl Newport writes that he's not on social media. He doesn't do what other professors they say that they're supposed to do, like the trips and the conferences and the this and that and all the noise and distractions. He's into deep work. Not all the time. He leaves time to do all this stuff, to do some of that stuff, some of that shallow work. But this is what made him one of the youngest professors that get tenure. This is what made him one of the most successful authors out there. He's not on social media. He's not checking email. He's not doing shallow work. He's giving himself the headspace to go and do deep work. So now it's your time. What should you or could you remove from your schedule that is shallow work? How can you contain the shallow work at a specific time? So it doesn't need to not go on social media, but it might be not go in the morning if that's your peak time. And really focus. What do you want to do in your deep work time? Do you want to study or go deeper on the topic? Do you want to work on a project? One, not 13 projects that you've got on go. One project. And that is really how we bring things forward, how we make things happen. We dive deep and we come out of it so much more alive, so much more accomplished. Once we understand the concept of deep work and we want to bring insight to the people that we help, we see that so much more is possible. Thank you for being here week after week, and I will see you next Tuesday.